Once upon a time, a troubled man approached Gautama Buddha, seeking advice on how to control his emotions. The man was weighed down by anger and frustration and longed for a way to manage these overwhelming feelings. Buddha, with his ever-gentle smile, invited the man to sit. "Let me tell you a story," Buddha said softly. There was once a powerful king ruling over a prosperous kingdom. One day, this king decided to visit a neighboring land, curious about its ruler, who was said to possess great wisdom. Upon his arrival, the king was welcomed with honor and treated to a grand feast. During the feast, however, a small fly landed in the king's soup. Disgusted, the king's mood immediately soared. He summoned a servant and demanded another bowl, his face clouded with irritation. The wise ruler, noticing this, leaned in and said gently, "Your Majesty, do not be angry. It is just a fly, after all." But the visiting king, still bristling, replied, "I cannot tolerate such things. Even a tiny fly can ruin my mood." The wise ruler smiled knowingly and offered these words, "It is not the fly that ruined your mood, Your Majesty, but your reaction to it. Remember, you hold the power to control your emotions. Do not let them control you." Buddha paused, letting the weight of the story settle in. The visiting king returned to his kingdom, realizing the depth of these words. From that day on, he practiced the art of not reacting impulsively. And over time, he found that his peace of mind was no longer at the mercy of trivial events. The man listening to Buddha nodded, absorbing the lesson. But Buddha wasn't finished. Now, Buddha continued, "Let me tell you another story. There once lived a young man named Aiden. He, too, was often overwhelmed by his emotions. Quick to anger, quick to react. He would say things in the heat of the moment, things that would hurt the people he cared about. One day, after yet another argument that left him feeling empty and regretful, Aiden decided something had to change. He began practicing mindfulness, learning to observe his emotions without immediately reacting to them. Buddha leaned forward, his voice calm and steady, whenever Aiden found himself in a situation that would normally trigger his anger. He paused. He would take a deep breath, give himself a moment, and then decide how to respond. At first, it wasn't easy. His old habits tugged at him. But with time and practice, it became easier. Aiden noticed something profound happening in his life. His relationships improved. Arguments that once seemed inevitable no longer erupted. He learned to communicate with calmness, even when situations were challenging. One day, Buddha said with a knowing smile, a friend came to Aiden, seeking advice. This friend was going through a tough time and, overwhelmed with emotion, was on the verge of losing control. Aiden, now calm and composed, listened patiently. He didn't rush to offer advice or judgment. Instead, he allowed his friend to speak, offering only comfort and understanding. "Thank you," the friend said. "You always seem to know the right thing to say. How do you stay so calm?" Aiden smiled and said, "It's not that I don't feel anger or frustration, my friend. I do. But I've learned to control my emotions, rather than letting them control me. It's something anyone can learn." Buddha paused again, his eyes resting gently on the man in front of him. The lesson Aiden learned is the same one that the king learned. "It's the same lesson you must learn," Buddha said, his voice soft but firm. "We cannot control every event that happens in our lives, but we can always control how we respond. And that, my friend, is the secret to peace." Buddha leaned back, letting the finality of his words sink in. The power to control your emotions, he concluded, is one of the greatest strengths a person can have. It not only changes your life but the lives of those around you. When we pause, when we breathe, think, and then respond, we make space for wisdom, for clarity, and for kindness. The man sat in silence, reflecting deeply on Buddha's words. He realized that peace, True peace did not come from the absence of challenges but from mastering the art of responding to them with grace. The lesson is simple but profound: respond, don't react. Choose action over impulse. In that choice lies your freedom. The king and Aiden both discovered that the power to transform their world was always within them. And as you reflect on this, remember, you too hold that same power. Take a breath. Pause. And choose wisely.